There is a thief that lives inside the mind. It doesn't arrive with a sound. It doesn't break down a door. It enters through the quiet cracks of our what-ifs and maybes. This thief doesn't steal your television or your wallet. It steals something far more precious, your peace. It steals your joy by replacing it with a constant, low-humming dread. It steals your future by convincing you to live in 1,000 imaginary catastrophes instead of one precious present moment. This thief has a simple common name: worry. Worry is the ultimate con artist. It masquerades as a responsible friend, a diligent sentinel standing guard. It whispers that its obsessive vigilance is a form of protection. If you just think about this problem long enough, it promises, you can prevent the pain. But this is its greatest deception. Worry is not a shield, it is a cage. It doesn't stop the storm from coming, it just stops you from enjoying the sunshine. This is a story about that thief and what happens when it is given the keys to a life. It is the tale of Arthur Prentice, a man who had everything to live for, and how, one fearful thought at a time, he surrendered it all. But more than that, this is a map of the desolate territory of anxiety, and crucially, a guide showing the path back to the world of the living. For anyone who has ever felt the cold grip of a racing mind, who has sacrificed a moment of happiness on the altar of a future fear, this story is a reminder that the cage door is not locked. You have always had the key. Part 1. The Architecture of Fear. Before the shadows fell, Arthur Prentice's life was a masterclass in solid construction. An architect by trade, his mind was a place of elegant logic, clean lines, and unwavering certainty. At 35, he was successful, respected, and in love with Clara, a woman whose vibrant, chaotic energy was the perfect counterpoint to his ordered world. Their life together felt like one of his buildings, built on a firm foundation, with a future that stretched toward the sky. The thief didn't arrive with a bang. It slipped in through the door of ambition. The firm landed a legacy project, a new city art museum, and Arthur was chosen to lead the design. The initial feeling was pure exhilaration, but it was quickly followed by a new, unfamiliar whisper. It started late at night, in the darkness after Clara was asleep. A diligent thought, "I need to ensure the structural calculations are perfect," would be followed by an insidious one. What if they're not? What if I've missed something? What if it all fails and ruins me? At first, he saw this as a sign of his commitment. "Just being thorough," he'd tell Clara, shrugging off her concern about his late nights. Worry had found its perfect disguise, diligence, but the disguise allowed it to grow stronger. Soon, Arthur's mind, once a tool for creating beautiful, functional spaces, began to architect a prison for itself. The process was methodical, built with 3 primary materials. The what-if engine. The core of the prison was the relentless what-if engine. The anxious mind abhors the present moment. It lives exclusively in a multitude of imagined, catastrophic futures. For Arthur, this became a constant running commentary on life. Driving to work. What if I get into an accident? In a meeting? What? If they think my idea is stupid? At home with Clara? What if she realizes I'm not exciting enough and leaves me? Each what if was a brick, laid one on top of the other, walling him off from reality. He was no longer living his life. He was pre-living 1,000 potential tragedies. This is the first great theft of worry. It steals the present, the only place where life actually happens. Arthur became a ghost in his own story, haunting a future that hadn't occurred and likely never would. The logic of catastrophe. The second phase of construction was catastrophizing, the art of turning a molehill into an apocalyptic mountain. One day, Arthur sent an email to the project's main client with a minor typo. A healthy mind would register a flicker of embarrassment and move on. Arthur's mind saw the first domino in a chain of ruin. His thought process was a lightning-fast descent into hell. The typo makes me look careless. If they think I'm careless, they'll lose faith in me. They'll pull the project. I'll be fired. My reputation will be destroyed. I'll never work again. Clara will leave me. I'll end up alone. In seconds, a misplaced letter had led to utter destitution. His body reacted as if this imagined scenario was real. His heart pounded, his palms sweat, and nausea washed over him. He was living in a state of emergency, triggered not by a real threat, but by the phantoms his own mind had created. The shrinking world of avoidance. The prison's final tragic feature was the moat of avoidance. To reduce the triggers for his anxiety, Arthur began to systematically shrink his world. It started small. He'd decline a friend's invitation to a party. Too much pressure. I might say something stupid. It's safer at home. He began delegating client presentations to junior colleagues, citing a need to focus on technical details, when, in truth, he was terrified of the scrutiny. His world, once an expansive landscape of opportunity, was shrinking to the size of his apartment, and then to the size of his desk, and finally to the suffocating confines of his own skull. Clara felt him slipping away like trying to hold on to smoke. "Talk to me, Arthur," she would plead, but he couldn't explain. How could he articulate that he was afraid of everything? He was trapped. The walls of what if were high, the watchtowers of catastrophe were manned, and the moat of avoidance was deep. Arthur was the sole inmate in a prison of his own design, and from inside, the world of love and joy seemed impossibly far away. The thief was no longer just stealing his peace. It was preparing to take everything else. Part 2. The great unraveling a structure under constant, unbearable stress will eventually break. Arthur's life, corroded from the inside out by the acid of chronic worry, was about to shatter. The phantom, fears he had rehearsed for months, began to manifest, creating a devastating, self-fulfilling prophecy. The collapse began on the stage he feared most, the final design presentation for the museum. He had prepared obsessively, but worry doesn't care about preparation. It feeds on performance. As he stood at the podium, the faces in the room blurred into a single judgmental entity. The what-ifs screamed in his ears. "They know you're a fraud. They can see you shaking." His voice came out as a thin tremor. He fumbled his notes, skipped a crucial section, and when asked a simple question, his mind went completely blank. He stammered, offering a vague, unconvincing answer. He hadn't just been nervous. He had been incapacitated by his own fear. The fear of failure had produced a spectacular failure. The fallout was swift. The firm restructured his role, a polite term for a humiliating demotion. The project that was meant to be his legacy became his shame. Unable to face the averted eyes and office whispers, he resigned. The career he had built with such precision was gone, a casualty of a war fought entirely within his head. His personal life crumbled next. One evening, Clara tried for the 100th time to reach him. She had cooked his favorite meal and spoke softly of a future they once dreamed of, a house, a garden. Arthur, lost in a spiral of worry about his joblessness and financial ruin, barely heard her. "A house?" he scoffed, his voice flat and dead. "We can't afford a house, Clara. We'll be lucky if we don't lose this apartment." It wasn't just his pessimism. It was the total absence of hope, the dismissal of her attempt to connect. Tears streamed down Clara's face. "I'm not talking about tomorrow, Arthur," she said, her voice breaking. "I'm trying to find you, but you're not here anymore. I've been living with a ghost who is terrified of his own shadow. I love you, but I cannot live inside your prison with you anymore. It's dark in there, and you won't let me turn on a light." That night, she left. The silence she left behind was a roaring confirmation of his worst fears. Worry had promised to protect him from loss, yet it had orchestrated the greatest losses of his life. Alone in the quiet apartment, with no job and no partner, his anxiety turned fully inward. The result was his first full-blown panic attack, a crushing weight on his chest, a spinning room, the absolute certainty that he was dying. An ambulance ride later, an ER doctor delivered the diagnosis. "Your heart is fine, Mr. Prentice. You've experienced a severe panic attack. It's a classic symptom of an anxiety disorder." He was in the exact place his worry had warned him about. He had lost his career, he had lost the woman he loved. His health was in shambles. He was safe now, from the pressures of work and relationships, but this safety was just an empty, silent room. This is the ultimate paradox of worry. In its effort to protect you from all pain, it strips away every source of joy, leaving you in a pain far worse than any of the disasters it was trying to prevent. Arthur had hit rock bottom. The thief had taken everything, and it was only there in the total darkness that a tiny, unexpected flicker of light could finally appear. Part 3. The blueprint for rebuilding rock bottom is a terrifying place, but it possesses one profound advantage. There is nowhere left to go but up. For Arthur, the turning point was not a dramatic epiphany, but a quiet, transformative realization. Rummaging through a drawer, he found an old photograph of himself and Clara on a beach, caught in a moment of thoughtless, unbridled laughter. He stared at the man in the photo, a stranger who was light, present and free, and then the thought came, clear and sharp. The thing I was most afraid of, losing everything, has already happened, and I'm still here. The fear had always been about the fall, but he had fallen, and he had not shattered. The monster he'd been running from had finally caught him, and he had survived its terrible embrace. In that moment, the dynamic shifted. With nothing left to lose, he had nothing left to fear. The prison, built to protect his treasures, was now just an empty, useless fortress. This was not a feeling of happiness, but of resilience. He walked to the window, pulled back the curtains, and let the sun sting his eyes. He didn't have a plan, but a new question had replaced the what-ifs. What now? The journey back began. With the one step he had been too proud and too afraid to take, he asked for help. He found a therapist who gave him not pity, but a new set of architectural tools, not for building with steel and glass, but for redesigning the landscape of his own mind. Tool 1, the anchor of the present, mindfulness. His first task was to learn to breathe. Mindfulness, the practice of observing the present moment without judgment, felt alien, but he learned that the goal wasn't to stop his thoughts, but to stop being dominated by them. He started with 5 minutes a day, focusing on his breath. When a worry arose, "You're a failure," he would learn to label it worrying and gently return his focus to his breath. Slowly, he created a crucial gap between a thought and his reaction to it. He was no longer on the storm-tossed boat. He was on the shore, watching the waves. The present moment became his anchor. Tool 2, the logic of the architect, cognitive. Behavioral therapy. His therapist taught him to use his greatest strength, his logical mind, to dismantle his fears. Using cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, he learned to act as a lawyer for his own defense, cross-examining his anxious thoughts. The anxious thought, "If I go to this job interview, I will panic and make a fool of myself." The cross-examination. What's the evidence against this? I've had dozens of successful meetings in the past. I am qualified. I have breathing techniques to manage my anxiety. The balanced verdict. I might feel anxious, but I have tools to handle it. Panicking. is a possibility, but not a certainty. It's also possible I will do well. By holding his fears up to the light of reason, they began to shrink from terrifying monsters into manageable problems. Tool 3. The wisdom of control, Stoicism. He was introduced to the Stoic principle of the dichotomy of control, which separates the world into two categories, things you can control and things you cannot. Arthur realized that 100% of his worry lived in the second category, what others thought, the outcome of events, the future. He learned to shift his energy. Instead of worrying, what if they don't like me? Uncontrollable. He focused on, I will prepare thoroughly and be myself, controllable. This was liberating. By ceasing to fight an unwinnable war against uncertainty, he freed up immense energy to invest in his own actions and character. Tool 4. The body as an ally, physical action. Anxiety had trapped him in his head. His therapist insisted he get back into his body. He started with walks, then graduated to running. Running became a form of moving meditation. The physical strain left little room for abstract worry. There was only the rhythm of his feet, the burn in his lungs, the feeling of being alive and powerful in his own skin. He was learning that you cannot simply think your way out of anxiety. Sometimes you have to move your way through it. These tools were not a magic cure. They required daily, conscious effort. Some days, the old thought patterns returned. But now he was no longer defenseless. He had a blueprint for recovery. He was transforming the stones of his prison into the foundation of a new home, one built not on the fear of what might go wrong, but on the quiet confidence of his own ability to handle whatever came his way. Conclusion: your own blueprint. The man who emerged from the rubble was not the same man who entered the storm. The new Arthur was quieter, wiser. He didn't return to corporate architecture. Instead, he started a small consultancy, taking on projects that brought him joy, not prestige. His measure of success was no longer the height of a building, but the happiness of the people who used it. He had traded blind ambition for grounded purpose. Worry still visits. It is a part of the human condition. But it is no longer the tyrant in charge. It is now a background noise, a signal he can acknowledge without obeying. He has learned that life is not a problem to be solved, but a reality to be experienced. True safety is not found in avoiding risk, but in cultivating the resilience to face it. Arthur's story is a universal one. The details may differ, but the thief is the same. It is the voice that whispers, you are not enough, that disaster is just around the corner, that you must remain on high alert. It sells you a lie, that the price of love and success is constant fearful vigilance. The true price of that vigilance is life itself, the unenjoyed moments, the untaken chances, the unlived adventures. Your story does not have to be a tale of how worry took everything. It can be the story of how you reclaimed your own mind. The journey begins with a single courageous choice. The choice to be present for just one breath. The choice to question just one negative thought. The choice to take one step outside. The choice to speak your truth and ask for help. Choose the sunshine, even if there are clouds in the sky. Choose the present moment, for it is the only place. Your life truly exists. Choose to become the architect of your world, not the prisoner of your fear. The tools are in your hands. The work and the life that awaits begins now.